Four Beardsmen of the Bookpocalypse.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Morning.
Good evening. Good morning.
Welcome.
Hello, everyone. We're joined by the amazing Livia J Elliot, who's very kindly woken up early and grown her beard just for us.
Yeah, it
Hey,
took
Livia.
me a time. It took me a few days to actually grow it, so so I could be just
Doing a
for
good job.
the show. You never told me that it was going to be itchy, but yeah, that's okay. In any case, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm super happy to be here.
You've outclassed me now, so I'm the beardless one again. So
Yeah,
Yeah, you're the baby face Cavendish.
that's it. Oh, David, our missing Desmond is in the chat. So
Oh, excellent.
We have a David. It can't be with us today. He's stalking Abercrombie. as we speak.
it's research. Remember, Tom? It's research.
Yeah.
But hopefully he'll patch in when he finally grabs hold of it, and maybe we'll have Joe Abercrombie on the podcast.
We have an exclusive. That's it. Our first live cross. We hope so. Or otherwise, some random dude in the queue. But either will be fine.
Yeah.
Who just looks like Joe Abercrombie.
That's it. We won't know.
Just
Today we should talk about Livia's books.
research.
I don't really know where to start on this one because I was doing a David Listow deep dive on your website, Livia, and you kind of just don't constrain yourself to the one genre or even writing medium. Like you've done a novella, you're doing the Kickstarter, which has been backed and is now live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kickstarter
this
Dance with
one.
Me. Yes.
Yeah.
And also you've done an app, like an interactive story app.
Yes, I do. And I don't have it at hand. Let me put it soon so I can show you. But yeah, I do a lot of mediums and a lot of genres. And I think that most of all the different genres come also on the app because we decided it will be fantasy and science fiction. And sometimes I get ideas and I need to write them. So that's how it ended up there. But most of that I think in the app is where I'm most inventive. I have near future sci-fi, far future sci-fi, I have fantasy, I have coming of age, I have cozy fantasy even in the app. So there is quite a bit of them in there. But then the series, they are pretty different. So this is, as you know, like a more fairy tale, clean fantasy, even though it can be a bit difficult in terms of the topics it touches. I also tried to write it in a way that you could get the message without actually seeing all the explicit parts, because there is no need for that. And this one, the one that Charlie shown, this one is more, I would say, philosophical, analytical, and something completely different, right? And that actually, it's quite funny because it came from the app. So the first entry that I wrote for that series is, let me see if I can show you. It's mean. So that's the one that I wrote in this universe, in this one. And and it turns out that I went through the rabbit hole of every writer. I did too much world building. So, and then I said, like, I invented all of these and I have so many ideas and I kept coming up with, bits of the story that I'm trying not to share because they are spoilers. And said, like, that's it. I'm going to do the whole series on it. So that's how it happened, And yeah, most of the others are mostly because I just need to write a theme and sometimes a sci-fi setting fits better. And
yeah, like when the idea is in your head, it's just got to come out.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And so, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, I think we're all guilty of doing too much world building, and me especially. Like I've got a Google Doc for my book, The Corsair, and I think at a glance it's like 55 pages and counting, and it's just random shit. There's no coherent story. It's just like, hey, did you know in this random content they pay for things with this incredibly random currency that's never going to be used ever?
Yeah.
Oh, when you're on book 4, Tom, that's going to be quite a task to manage.
God, I hope so.
Yeah. But
what is your general approach to world building then? Is it just to sort of cram everything you can in the app and see what comes out? Or
so it's generally pretty different. I would say it depends on the series. So some of them I have written them. Oh, wait, I will need to go beardless.
Oh, no.
It's not real.
That's a
It's
record.
not real. Sorry,
I
it
think you've beat the
It-
record for keeping a fake beard on, so well done.
Yeah.
You beat Holly Beasley by 1
kept
minute.
falling. It kept falling. So yeah, to answer your question, I think it really depends on the story. So some of them that are sometimes a standalone, I will just get the theme and I will add very small details, like for example, city names or passing mentions of traditions or things like that, just to have like a, teasing the reader that there is something more out there. But I will keep it to a minimum if I know that I don't want to take the story to the next level or to write a series. And I just want to focus on something very concrete. Like, for example, Reflections, that's a standalone. That's also pretty emotionally and thematic. And that one, I really didn't need much world building because I wanted it to be like 95% focused on the character. And even the setting, it's just a character talking. So I didn't need much. But then, for example, for Means of Egress, that's a dungeon crawler. So I had to basically create the whole dungeon and create a lot of background for the characters so that it could be referenced as they go through the dungeon, right? And write it. And that's something very different to the approach that I did with Genesis and Records of the Orders. In this one, I did a lot of world building. So it started with Mean, the one that is on the app. And that's because this is a very political grimdark, right? So the whole thing is that an alchemist is sent to a nation that is called Astresia. And this type of alchemist in particular, which are more like Lovecraftian eldritch being. So it's not your traditional alchemy. And this person has to somewhat organize or advise the government as to what to do, right? And because of that setting and that premise, I needed a lot of world building to actually make the plot work because they were investigating what was happening on that city, right? It was quite easy because that whole story, even the setting and the political system, is an allegory to something different, which is academia. So I was basing some of the things into how academia work, and from there it came in a whole fantasy system, which was pretty different. And from there, that's the rabbit hole I went through it. I basically started defining all of the alchemist types, all of the different skills I had, all the events and all the characters and what were all the motivations. And I went ahead writing thousands and thousands of years. And I said, once I had all of that, I said, like, no, there are just too many stories here that I want to tell. And I picked up the point that will be, the one that will kickstart everything on the series, and that's the Genesis of Change. And I'm currently writing that. But for example, for Dance With Me, it actually came completely different. I had the theme first. So I knew the allegory that I wanted. I knew what I wanted to have the ballerina locked in a music box, locked in a cupboard, animated by magic. I knew I wanted that, and I wanted to share a theme. Most of all, I wanted to be able to put up a reflection about self-love and how we've sometimes focus so much on work or so much on pleasing others, right? So the team came first, and this one didn't need that much world building because at the end of the day, the characters are tiny figures that are locked in a cupboard.
Yeah,
right?
It's a small world.
Yeah, so the world is pretty small. There are some comments as to the wider world, like for example, the Clockmaster. I'm going to show you the drawing of her because she's amazing. So this is the Clockmaster. And she makes a comment saying like she keeps all the clocks in this world aligned or things like that. And there are other passing mentions, of a wider world that I was thinking about.
Into that, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't need much, mostly because it was so close. I did put up a lot of effort on that one, on hinting at the backstory of the characters, because the figurines, some of them are decades old, even though they are still looking the same. Yeah, so I wanted to clue in what had happened before, and that's where I put up far more effort. So then when I wrote, and this one is actually also available on the Kickstarter, I wrote Our Own Rhythm. Let me show you the cover because it's amazing. That's another standalone in the same world, but it's written with a different set of characters. So this is a cover. This one was done by a Russian artist, A.A. Chernyshov. So this is interactive for now. And it's the same concept, dolls in a bookshelf, It's just a different types of doll, a different allegory, actually. So it's not about fractures, it's more about transformation, and it's more about, I would say, bullying, anxiety, and depression, that one. While Dance With Me, it's more about just emotional abuse and trying to find yourself again and whether you love. So in those cases, the allegories came first because that's what I wanted to share,
Yeah. The Kickstarter's had a good response so far. It's been backed already. It's still got
it's funded already. We actually went through the 5th stretch goal. So it will come with bookmarks, it will come with prints, and the prints are actually from the drawings inside the artwork inside the book. So the one that I showed is one. Let me see if I can find another one. The artwork on this one here. So the artwork is amazing. Yeah, it's made in graphite by Mexican artist Jose Arturo Bustamante, and actually the cover. So that
sounds so much better when you say it, Livia, with your accent.
So the cover here is actually the original cover that we got for the app. Let me see if I can show you. So in the app, we got, we wanted to have at least this one. It was so special to me that we wanted to have original artwork that I hadn't done it myself. So the one in the app, that's the one that you get here as a, yeah. And we got the prints. That the prints will be pieces of the artwork. So 2 artworks that we will select which ones after. So we will send a survey to the backers. They will pick which ones they want. And we also have the 3rd stretch goal. So every backer will go into the acknowledgement. And the last one that we did is that for the paperback actually has a design in marble, so it looks different. It will be duplex printed. So this part will have like a design in there that I shared not long ago. And we are going for the 5th stretch goal, actually, which is an insert that's going to be a letter from one of the secondary characters to another. So we are not far away from that one. It will be amazing to get that one in there.
I just put the Kickstarter link in the chat for anyone if they want to reach out to it. So it's
thank you.
That was good.
Yeah, and we have a lot of rewards. So we have the hardback that's the most affordable. I think it's only $28 American, so it should be fine. And we got the hardback and the audiobook. The audiobook, she's amazing. I can show you after. Alison Phoenix is a narrator, and she basically nailed every single character. For Margot, I asked her to sing while the character was speaking. She actually did it. No, she's amazing. And in this book, you all read a bit or part of it. There are a lot of characters with French accents or different accents, and she did them all. She did them all. It's stunning. Then we have Our Own Rhythm, access to it as well. And depending on the tiers, you can get polymer clay earrings done by myself, or even a short story, interactive short story written with your pet as a main character. So there are a lot of rewards in there as well that you can get. So
well, anyone watching, the link's in the comments. Check it out.
Yeah, so it's all good. Very well.
So going back to the audio, how did the narrator tackle the strike through?
Oh, that was actually quite we took some time trying to brainstorm what we could do. And what happens is that we ended up going with panning. So you will hear the sound on one side or in the other, randomly panned. Yeah. And it was a bit of a discussion because at the start we talked about doing whispers, but the whispers came across more like psychosis, and it wasn't really the feeling that I wanted. So she kept it in the same tone. We just panned it so you can hear the whole thing like very far away on this side or in this other one.
Yeah.
And then she did a bit of post-production so that Spotify will actually accept it, because it's a bit difficult to share it on the different sounds. But yeah, it was a very nice way of doing it. And the book also has bold and all caps, so she did tones on those. Basically, it's louder. Or she had a great way of doing it. Like, I interviewed her in my podcast and she explained most of it on how she did it. Like, she will read in the text, the strike through is generally a thought that the main character censors, right? So you can read the sentence with that or without it, right? So what she will do was basically read the whole sentence without the strike through text, then read the strike through text, and then edit to put it up in the middle. Yeah. So it took her quite a lot of time to actually do that, but it came across perfectly. Like, I'm biased.
Otherwise it could come quite stilted if you're trying to read it in one in a linear.
Yeah, so she will read without that and then edit it. And the perk of the audiobook is that I narrated the author notes. So
okay. So you get two narrators for the price of one.
It was just the author notes, but you get it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Make an appearance.
So you have been very busy. While you've been growing that beard, you've been very busy.
Yeah. And it was I think that the audiobook was honestly amazing. Like, going from, there are different levels as you write the characters, you imagine them, then seeing the artwork. That was like just the first step of them coming alive, But then when I heard them, and I was actually doing the listening and the proof basically with one of the misprinted paperbacks that I had. Like, the margins were wrong, but everything was there. And I was doing it with that. And I was just like, it felt so immersive, especially because they were my characters, And yeah.
And it must be different to have your work almost presented back to you. Like, you spent some time in your head and writing all that down, and then actually having it sent back to you as an author must be quite a unique experience.
Yeah,
you're experiencing it the way the listener would experience it.
Yeah, it was actually very, very nice, I will say. And hearing them talk, that's something completely different, especially because at some point, Alison and I, we were just trying to nail the voices as well. Like, there are a lot of strange things. Like, in chapter 1, you get both sisters. The twin sisters that are basically glued together, and Lyra, the main character, refers to them as leftmost and rightmost. So Alison came with the idea of doing a small pun when they speak, because they don't have a name. So we did that first. Then we have two secondary characters that are siblings, Andre and Gerard. So she tried to do a voice that will be somewhat similar to hint that they were siblings. So then we tried to get their accents, except that one will be far more cheerful. The other one is an academic professor, so he's all like proper. Try to get that. Yeah, so she put up a lot of effort in that. And it's also very different because this one also has an audiobook, and it's narrated by a different narrator, and they all work so different. Like, the steps that they will follow, they were so different, And that was also very nice to see how two different people worked making the audio,
Yeah, you'll be well versed in all these different mediums now. So
yeah. So I think it's something very different, especially with dance. I was a bit scared because the strike through text is so important to the text. And I was very worried that how will I do it, and how will I get somebody that will actually be willing to experiment, and try to, But
it's the whole extra dimension. The strike through is the sort of hidden hidden story. It's the other dimension of all of it. That's my favorite aspect of it.
Oh,
Love
really?
it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, and in some pages it doesn't appear much. In some pages it appears a lot. Like, let me see. So in this one you don't have much. You only have a bit. But then on the next page, there is a lot of it. If I can show you there. So
Yeah.
in some cases there is a lot, and yeah, she nailed that. And then I think it was also a bit complex, not trying to do patterns with the left, right as well, because we wanted that to be a bit more dynamic. So yeah, there was a lot in there in the production of the audiobook, and yeah, I'm super excited that it's already there and for people to listen. I think it's a very nice immersive, experience to get it that way.
So there's the pitch round to go to get the Kickstarter, because it sounds like you need to get this. You need to have this audiobook as well. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then with the
that's good,
hardback, you get it illustrated. So the
Yeah,
hardback is completely illustrated. So yeah.
And I've seen some of the posts over those illustrations. They're amazing. That the artist you picked, I know you did mention the name before, was it's got a lot of layers to it, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it has a lot. Like, for example, let me see if I can find Andre. He's one of my favorites. Like, look at the reflection he did there in the. Yeah. It's amazing. Like, he will, and that's pencil graphite actually, and he will show me the drawings, and I was just like, how did you do it without Photoshop? It's amazing. Yeah, the artwork is amazing, and you can get the editions. These ones will come in signed, or signed and numbered, or signed, numbered, and dedicated, depending on the tiers as well. So
yeah, that's some good tiers. And did you expect when you did the Kickstarter that it would go? You'd smash through those tiers as quickly as you did?
No, I wasn't expecting that. Like, I was expecting to take a week to fund it, honestly.
Yeah. And it was great. I mean, I love seeing when, it must be terrifying and equally sort of exciting in equal measures doing that, I can imagine. But to see it succeed and see, when authors herself, it's pleasing as a sort of observer of these things to, I'd love to see people do well.
I think it's also, as I was super nervous. And I wasn't sure whether, especially because the pre-launch took a lot of time to actually take off. Right?
To set it
so
up,
it was quite slow. Yeah, it was quite slow, and but on the launch, we just smashed like the first goal. We funded in 12 minutes, and then smashed the first stretch goal in like couple hours.
12 minutes, that's incredible. Well done.
Yeah, and I was honestly not expecting that. But you know what's the shock? It's that people wanted to read my books. That's a shock. And there were actual people in there waiting to back my Kickstarter. And it's not only that, if you add another layer, it's that this is such a personal book. It's so important to me because it actually helped me heal a bit. And there were people interested in that as well. Like, I was happy and shocked at the same time. And, like all the mixed emotions that you can get there.
It must be and I put almost a question of the three authors in the room, as opposed to just the reader, which is me at the moment. With a Kickstarter, I guess you can go and you launch a book and people buy it, and obviously you get some feedback of how it's being perceived. But something like a Kickstarter is a very instant sort of barometer of people, as you said, people that want to book or want to back you or want to support you.
Yeah.
So I can see why it would be terrifying and exciting in equal measure. It's like, well, what if it doesn't sell out in 12 minutes? But equally, there's ones that probably take time to gather some momentum, and it's quite interesting as a relatively recent phenomenon, isn't it? It's only in the last couple of years that really began. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but
I've generally got like mixed thoughts on publishing Kickstarters. I think like the way you're doing Dance, Livia, is like the perfect way to do it because it's such a personal project for you. And correct me if I'm wrong, but was the intention to always have Dance as like your Kickstarter book?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last bit.
Always your intention to do Dance with me as a Kickstarter book, or did that?
No, actually, that happened. It started as an interactive, and roughly around July or August last year, my partner and I, we were having a dinner, and I suddenly have like an epiphany of, it's going to be 2 years since we actually started Unearthed Stories. And I said, like, 1, where did the time go? 2, we need to do something to celebrate. And he just looked at me and told me, like, you have to novelize Dance with Me. That story needs to be a book. And yeah, that's how I started. I was a bit hesitant because the mechanics in the game with the strike through work a bit different. So what happens is when you choose a path, sometimes Lyra will just ignore it, strike it, and do something else. So you get like an other layer of frustration to it. And it took me a bit to novelize that. I tried with a few chapters, and then we said, like, okay, how do we release it? And the idea was to do a Kickstarter as well, so we could, shine a bit of light on the book in particular and see if we could reach a different network of people.
So you're almost reverse engineering from the interactive to get into the text.
Yeah, and this one has, so the interactive is, if I recall, 47,000 words, and that's basically because you have 2 different paths, and this one is 37, and because I extended the scenes, basically. So there are a lot of scenes in the interactive that are very short, like some of the conversations are just two questions or 1 question and off you go. That's it. Because I needed it to move faster. But when it came to the book, I realized that I had crafted a lot of paths that were worth having in a book, and that the conversations in the book worked better if they were longer. So that's how I kept them. And what happens is that in the interactive, you can miss some of the characters. Like you can either not meet them or not look at them, depending on Lyra's mood. And also at the end, you know that there is a second figure that comes in that is somewhat like a replacement. That's Dorian. In the interactive version, you can actually choose whether it's Dorian, which is a danseur, or Cadenza, which is a ballerina. And if you choose the ballerina, Lyra will have a lot of thoughts about being replaced that are far more stronger, because a ballerina is like a direct replacement, So, yeah, and because of that, in the interactive, you can get a different artwork at the end, because you will get an artwork of Lyra and Cadenza. But then for this one, I just chose to do with Dorian at the end.
Yeah. I think that's amazing. Like, it was this concept you had, like the I'm getting from you, like your main theme is immersion. Like, doesn't matter what the medium is, you want the reader to be fully invested, immersed in the experience. I'm getting vibes of those old choose your own adventure kind of novels. Like, did you ever read those when you were
you read my mind, Tom. That was one of my questions I had. I was like, okay.
I read a single one, and then I read a single that was actual proper choose your own adventure. My partner actually read far more, and he came with the idea of doing Unearthed. I also read books that were somewhat similar, like Hopscotch by Cortázar, which is a book that you have to read in different orders, the chapters, and you get a different story, right? Okay. So that was another. And I have been a sucker of narrative games like my whole life. Like I started with Shining Forces 2, which is very old. And then I moved into different games, and that was something that I really liked. I thought that when my partner told me that we could do Unearthed Stories and write, I said, like, okay, it's branching in the path in interactive. It's just not branching the story. It can serve a different purpose. And so we started seeing how you do that different purpose and how you appeal to, the classic show, don't tell. How can you do that through the mechanics, not only through the text? So that added a whole different layer. But then when I had to reverse engineer that into the book, I was just like, that was just, it worked in the app. How do I make it work in the text, So it was a completely different experience as well. Yeah, the Shining Forces had excellent music. That's true.
That roving reporter is reporting in.
Joe hasn't started speaking yet. So, just explaining, I then we mentioned that David is at our Fourth Beardsmen is at a Joe Abercrombie signing event, so he may tune in live, but he's obviously listening. So
I mean,
hopefully he
said
tunes
it,
back with a signature and everything.
That's it. Yeah, we all want signed copies of The Devil. David's on that.
He said it's a signing event. We don't actually know. We haven't fact checked this.
No,
Yeah.
no, we haven't. Maybe
Could just
check
be
online.
following the guy in a shopping mall or something.
Yeah.
So, so with the interactive stories, how long from getting the idea to launching it to obviously you're talking a little before about developing.
Yeah,
The
for the
concept.
Kickstarter, you mean?
Yeah. Oh,
So-
well, no, more for your own stories, like from getting into the having the idea to sort of launching the games and launching the app. How long
I
did
think
that?
it depends on the stories as well, and so I probably have different standards for all of them. I think the only one that I ever pants is this one, Reflections. Like that's the only story I ever pants, and I wrote it in a weekend. And I was fine. It's just a novelette, so it's I think 12,000 words, so it's pretty short. But I just had the idea. I knew exactly how it went. I just plunged through it. That's the only one. The rest, I'm an extreme plotter, and I will have to plot it. And especially for the interactive ones, I need to plot the path, and I need to understand how they will branch out and what will happen towards the end. For Dance With Me, it was always a bit more emotional because I was writing it to also self-reflect, and the allegory was pretty personal. So I knew the type of ending that I wanted, and I knew the characters that I wanted. So I just planned for that when I did a more high-level plotting. I planned the different paths, what would be the alternatives, but and for the conversations, I only had like a high-level overview and then let them flow from what would happen there. But in other cases, for example, on Genesis, I went down to the level of actually plotting the dialogue and then writing. So it was far different, right? And this one, it may be short, but it actually took so much time because I think that the alchemists are weird. The setting in which they are is weird. So like the tower in which they are, it doesn't respect time, and it looks like a painting from Escher. So like all twisted, you have staircases backwards, forwards, and they are trying to teach the main characters some of the alchemy and the magic system. So there was a lot of things that were clashing with reality because these alchemists live in a different reality, and I had to do so many runs through it simply to try to get that into a level that the reader will get a bit of awareness and the idea of what I was saying at the same time. So in that case, it was like a bit, I had to come back and forth a lot in that one just to get the ideas done. And more than the ideas, a presentation done in a way that it would come across to the reader. And it depends because, for example, Means of Egress, which was the dungeon crawler, what I had with that one is a scope creep. So my idea was far grander than what I actually could do. Like the randomness that I wanted to put up in the story, because it's interactive, it just went through the roof, and then I had to chop it down and keep it more linked in. But for example, Mean, which is the one from Genesis, it happens 5 years after Genesis. You have basically 4 endings. So depending, you have green choices or purple choices, and depending on your choices, the story splits at one moment, and you can go from there, and it splits again 2 times on the ending. The problem with that one is that being a political narrative, depending what you will say to one character is information that you will get and how they will act. So I had to track all of that so that in every ending you could get the facts basically tuned to whatever choices you made, right? So getting that was actually, it started somewhat simpler, but then the more I reached the ending, it was exponentially complex because of how I needed to bring everything in together. And
this sounds like trying to juggle on a unicycle.
Yeah, like for that one, actually towards the end, like I had a whole document with every path that I had named, what had been said, what I needed to happen and who will need to react and who knew about that. So for the characters, because I needed to be extremely precise to actually get it consistent. So otherwise I will basically introduce plot holes, but not considering the path of a reader. And in Dance With Me, that happened once because I had one path in which you don't see one character. So you can speak with them without actually seeing them. And the body beats were killing me. like I will use, he moved his arm. And yeah, that's okay if you are looking at the other person. But then if she was just standing against the wall and not looking at the character, because that's the choice that you made, like I could describe like the silk making a shushing sound, but I couldn't say he moved the arm. So it was very nuanced writing that scene in the interactive, especially. And then I had to chop it out when I did the novelization. Yeah. Different things that I learned. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I imagine you learned a lot from going through that process.
Yeah, I think so. It's just, I think the interactives at the end of the day taught me to be very careful, because even a body beat that's so simple like that could actually introduce a plot hole in some case, Yeah, and that's something that it doesn't happen in a book. Like, yeah, you can forget to make the character get out of the room, or suppose that they were sitting and you make them stand. But that's something easy to correct. In this case, when I was doing that scene for the first time, I didn't realize until like halfway down the scene that I was actually doing all of that. And I had to start reading all the paths and the branches to see whether I had put up the incorrect body beats. It was one of the first stories that I wrote, so I made a lot of mistakes in there, and then I learned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the way to learn.
Very impressive.
Yeah, I think it's a different style, like you said, like Tom said, it's a different medium. You end up doing different things.
Oh, yeah.
So how many stories are on Unearthed now?
So on Unearthed we have 15, and we have 4 invited writers currently. So we have, for the invited writers, we have Joshua Walker, Bethany Garcia, Carl Forshaw, and Thomas Evans. And yeah, we are hoping to get 1 or 2 more later this year. It takes time as well because it's a bit difficult. The process of writing is different. So sometimes that's something that we need to coordinate with the writer as well. And, how to, like in one of those stories, I had one of the writers doing the classic body beat issue. Like they will have the character close their eyes on one path and keep them open on the other. And I was just like, no, you have to tie them up. And they hadn't realized, like all those details. Yeah. I think some of them get them. In general, it has been a great experience as well, because trying to explain how to do it has also been a learning experience for me, and also seeing how other people approach. So it's the same system, and seeing how the other writers approach it and what they do with the stories. And because I'm the editor, I'm sometimes thinking like, I would have done that differently. And then I think like, why would I have done that differently? And then I start thinking on that. And yeah, it's a very nice learning experience as well.
So what is the process to write something like that? I mean, I've read loads of game books. I love the Lone Wolf series. Like that was my sort of interactive story when I was growing up. But to actually write one, I wouldn't have the first idea.
So I think it depends on the stories. And I will say, at least for me, how do I write it depends on what the branching mechanic does. So when you have the choice, right? Let me see if I can show you one of the stories and actually show you the choices. So when you have the choices, you will have a few paragraphs. This is actually Dance With Me. So you will have a few paragraphs, and then you get the choice, and then you can just swipe one and the story continues, right? But when you choose, what you are choosing and the effects that choosing will have on the story, at least to me, determine how I will write it. In Dance With Me, for example, the choices, I just wanted to toy with the idea that you can make a choice, but then the depression on the character or the situation makes them deny what that choice would have done. So Lyra will just strike through the choice and do something different, right? So in those cases, there were branching paths, but they were only illusions, right? So that I will have to, when I planned the story and when I was writing it, I was taking that into consideration, like how much will I frustrate the reader, because I wanted them to feel the frustration Lyra felt, right? But then, for example, in Means of Egress, I told myself, you are only going to choose where you go. And where you go actually affects the character and the events that you know. So in that game in particular, or book with choices, as I call them, you are always choosing to go up or down, right? So do you keep climbing or do you go down and descend the staircase? But where you go are different rooms. You may go to a library, you may get stuck somewhere, may go to a mirror's room, right? And what you learn and what you find in there will actually change how the character is, right? So in that case, I had to plan for that path. Let me see, Mean that I mentioned, that is for the other series, it has that green path, purple path. That was actually quite complex, because if you pick the purple path, it's more about revenge, and the character is so full of hate. And that has an effect not only on the events, but also on the character herself. And then when you go for the green path, it's more like a imposter syndrome, always done talking themselves, and so again that has an effect on the story and in the main character. So for that one in particular, I had to write up to some point, and then the character had literally 2 different personalities. So I just stopped there, wrote one path, then wrote the other entirely, because they were like different events. There is a point in which a story just branches out completely and completely different events start happening. And then for each of the paths, you can still take, for example, a purple choice within the green path. So that was like a tweak that I also had to start from the beginning and go through to add all of that interactivity as well. And I have done very different things, like for example, a static signal. I challenged myself to work only with a small people. So that's a near future sci-fi. You could say First Contact. And I wanted, the type of a problem I think with fantasy or sci-fi is that you always have the kings, the knights, the decision makers. I just wanted to have the little people in there. Like I have a few research scientists. It's near future sci-fi, so it happens in Australia actually. So I had the scientists, I had radio amateurs and things like that. So their choices are always small choices. Like, how do you react to an event? What do you think about the event? What do you say about it? And suppose that this character is reacting afraid or very courageous, that actually affected another character, because it's also multi-POV. And the smaller choices actually carry on through the story, because if you reacted very scared, then you're further on, 20 chapters on, you are not going to have the courage to actually do something. And that will actually cascade into the choice. Right, so the effects of the choices in that case is more subtle, and it builds up as well. It's also one of the longest. I think it has like 47 chapters. Like generally, I try to keep them shorter, because the longer I go, the more branches that I have, and the complexity grows exponentially. So I'm not sure how I will novelize one of those. Like for example, with Mean, I wanted to novelize that, but the problem that I will have is like basically what path do I choose? Because I wrote it in a way that you will find out everything in the story by going through both paths, right? So my main problem is that how do I choose, and how do I bring in the elements that I need? Once I figure that out, I will probably novelize it as well. Yeah.
But I like what you said there about focusing on that, particularly on the smaller characters, like that's also quite an interesting story. It reminds me of that. I don't know if I remember that movie District 9. And so the aliens don't always go to America. This whole thing of that they arrived in that sort of, it's one of my favorite movies, because I think it's
brilliant. Johannesburg, I think.
Johannesburg, that's it. And picks up, if you have been to South Africa, you know, they have, you know, there's a lot of problems there in the slums, and you know, it sort of resonate for that level as well. But it was as, and again, you know, and in that story, there's a a sort of almost scientist, or you know, quite a small figure really. He's not the general in charge. He's not the scientist that's creating the virus. He just trying to sort of get home to his family, sort of, whilst being, spoiler alert, turned into a bug.
Yeah. So I also played a bit because that one is multi-POV, which is something that's not generally done in interactive fiction. So in interactive fiction, you just pick one character and go through it, or that what is more common is that you allow the reader to create a character. I don't do that. I just simply just, this is the character and you are playing with them because I want to force the immersion. You know, I want to exaggerate the immersion. But in that one, I had multi-POVs because being such a small people, you know, they didn't have all the angles. So if I went with a single group of characters, it would be very difficult to show you what was happening all around. So I had basically 3 groups of people and four groups roughly, and you will jump between them. And each of them had 1 or 2 POVs. So sometimes you are following stories that are somewhat unrelated, but for example, the researchers do something, but then the radio amateurs decide to do something else and release some information, and that actually affects the researchers because they get the consequences of that, and then they follow through with discovering something else, and that affects another group of people, that they make a decision and that comes back. So it's more like you are always seeing like those storylines end up being related by the consequences of their choices, not exactly
so
the cause and effect.
So you're kind of following a story rather than the characters.
Yeah, but it's very fast-paced. I think that from the, you know, that I can be generally quite philosophical writing because I love putting up ideas. I think that's the most fast-paced, and it's also because it's near future. I think it's 2080. That is said. It's in Western Australia actually, and so it was like I started writing, and I was like, I suddenly can curse. I can use modern words. I don't have to worry about anachronisms. Yay! So it was a different thing. Yeah, you know that with fantasy, I'm very picky about the words and trying not to make it sound too modern. You know, which is
it must be quite hard to not sort of fall into patterns of speech or sort of
like, and for example, on Dance With Me, what I did is, since this is music and thematic and all of that, the main character describes like the voices as contralto, tenor, soprano, you know, because that's so I could use a very accurate description. Or instead of saying my heart beats, sometimes she does say it when it is very personal, but it's generally a tempo later, you know, because it has like, so I was playing with that music nomenclature as well.
That's interesting. I wouldn't have thought that sort of, because obviously that's their term, that's her terms of reference is musical.
And sometimes there are moments in which she wants to call for somebody and does like a moment, a gesture like this, and she describes it with a ballet name because she's a ballerina, right? So I always try to match the wording to the setting. And dance was actually like, I remember I researched so much about ballet, and then my Instagram was all ballerinas everywhere because I was always looking at how I could describe it or how I could do something. At least it was first, I will say, less funny than researching for Mean or Genesis, which are quite grimdark. And then I started writing or quitting something in Google, and I will go like, I swear that I searching this for writing purposes.
So was the ballet sort of aspect not biographical then? I presume that was something that you knew about and you always
No, I don't. I have more of a music background, but I was like so focused on getting the ballerina allegory because I have seen the music boxes with the little dancer at top, and I really wanted that because it's I think ballet has in general like this look of looking fragile and very feminine and delicate, and it's actually grinding. like the training they go through and everything they do, it's very grinding. So I wanted that contrast, that's why Lyra is literally not spending a moment without stretching or without practicing or something, because I wanted that contrast of how it looks and how it actually feels, And I also wanted to take the allegory of being a ceramic ballerina that gets fractured and fissured as things happen to life. I wanted to add layers to it. So I wanted the fact that she's locked into the music box. That's all she has. Like she literally sleeps in a drawer. She sleeps in a drawer in the music box. That should tell you something, like about being trapped. And then she's locked inside a cupboard, and she can't even open the cupboard. She can barely manage to make the box turn, and wound up the key. So I wanted those ideas, and I thought that the music box with a dancer at top, it's a toy or something that we have all seen in general. So I wanted to pull up from there, you have that bare idea of the concept, then that will allow you to explore the allegory that I was going for.
It's familiar in one hand because we probably all know what a music box is, but at the same time, probably never thought, well, what's it like being from there?
Yeah,
exactly. And then from the fact that she gets, if she's ceramic, she's somewhat fragile. And at the end of the day, I think we all are, because Dance With Me actually starts with the first paragraph is literally her coming to life because she's enchanted to life. So that should tell you that she may look like an adult, but she's not really an adult, right? So she's someone who is very young, very innocent, and children are fragile, Things that you tell our children that will actually affect them their whole life. So that's something that I wanted to put up, but I wanted to have that disguised on the allegory as well. The fact that she is ceramic adds to, the whole setting. It's a way to reflect that fragility by getting all the cracks and the fractures in her body, right? She may be getting that because things happen, but that's just a representation of the, I will say, wounds that happen to us that we keep carrying, that we can't really mend, and they stay with us our whole life. So that's what I was going for. I changed that so another thing that was important is that she's ceramic, she's not porcelain, because porcelain is more refined, and so the replacement doll that comes after is porcelain. It's like the other one is better. So there is exactly, there is a little clue. So perhaps the owner replaced her for something that is more refined or better. So it adds to her feelings of not being enough. And that's also something that it's never addressed in the story. So only her actually thinks, only the main character thinks that that Dorian, the doll that is purchased, is actually porcelain. And that's because sometimes I will think that we pick up on details that nobody else picks up,
Yeah.
And
you worry about no one else.
Exactly. And then sometimes you may tell a friend, like, A plus B, there is a connection here, and your friend goes like, oh, I hadn't even noticed. Because it was always on your mind that you were thinking and obsessing about that. So that's what I wanted to also have, that detail never addressed, but there, And if you pay attention, like when she speaks to the other characters, the secondary characters, I never mentioned the fact that he's made of porcelain and she's ceramic, because I wanted to reinforce that. I know it's very subtle, but I love doing things in a subtle way,
So clues, there's little layers. So to the readers, make sure you.
It's a valuable thing that when you discover something as a reader and you get that moment of glory that only you discovered the little secret.
Yeah, and I also have I love the type of books that when you reread them, they keep giving you things. Like, for example, the one that I have there, the Book of a New Sun. It's like whenever you read it, you will get something new, or more commonly known, The Name of a Wind. You keep reading it, you keep finding clues about it. I love that. I love that in books. So I wanted to add a lot of things that perhaps they may just go by in your first read because you are focused on the bigger details. But then knowing how everything ends, you come back and then you have all these layers and clues in there that you can also start seeing like the depths of what was happening. Yeah.
And the signposts of what was coming, but you perhaps didn't pick up on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Plus, I think
And then
when you're
sorry?
playing video games, like you go back, okay, I've played like the Paragon Virtuous Commander Shepherd. Now I'm going to be an asshole and play it all again completely differently.
Yeah.
So that's actually why I did both Two Paths on Mean, because I'm a fan of the original Mass Effect trilogy. And I wanted to get something like the Paragon and the Renegade, but I didn't want to do good versus evil. So I wanted to have different things, and then I come up with the revenge versus imposter syndrome. So blame others versus blame yourself. That's how I came up with that. But yeah, that was actually the inspiration for that.
I do love when you give people a choice between be good or be bad. How many people pick the good first? So yeah.
So for Mass Effect, what I can tell you is that I generally play Paragon, but there are two choices that I have to play Renegade because I can't forgive those characters. So I will just go Renegade on those two.
All I'm saying is I play Femshep Renegade, and Garrus is my space boyfriend. So hands off, everyone.
Okay, you've heard it here first.
Yeah, some calibrations have to be done.
No, hearing you talk about like weaving all the endings together, I was thinking like we needed Livia J Elliot for the ending of Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's also, it depends on how you play or how you write, and at least to me, it's also the message that I want to give, right? Because in a book, when you're writing a regular book, right, you, as the writer, there are a lot of things that you actually know, right? And you are actively choosing what to reveal to the reader, basically. So that's something that I play with. It's that, okay, I also know that things could have done this other way. What else do I want to reveal to the reader? So there is, in Mean in particular, there is one specific character which is called the Rector, which is, it's funny because every book in that series actually starts with a chapter by the Rector, because he's always this one. He's always doing stuff for this series. So in one path, they may tell you something, and in the ending, through the other path, they may tell you something different. And between both of them, you have to just, glue in the pieces together and see what happens. I think that Carl Forshaw actually did that on his interactive, in this one. You have a black ending and a white ending, and you have to get both. If you get both, then you get a clue of what was happening, like far more detail. Yeah. So
is it extra bonus?
Extra bonus. And then I generally handle that differently because, for example, on Means of Egress, the dungeon crawler, what I didn't care so much as to have different endings, and that's because that's a time loop. So what changes on this one is how you get from A to B. So you have an insane variability of paths, and I think 182 or something like that. So you have a lot of ways of reaching A or B and what happens after. So the variability comes in terms of what the character learned, not where the place they reached,
Yeah. So where do you see yourself going with immersive fiction? Like, are you going to keep pursuing that path, or is there something different on the horizon for you?
Yeah, definitely. It's like I have been writing that for so long that when I'm writing books, I'm missing something. I'm missing all the layers that the interaction and the different medium can give me. Yeah. Yeah, there is an easiness in the fact that I know that if you are in chapter 7, you have read everything else, right? And I don't have to account for the variability. But I think it's also like I learned to think in a way that will blend the mechanics with the story. So some stories I want to write them interactive, and some stories I want to write them in text. But yeah, currently I'm, in terms of actually publishing books, we have Dance With Me, this one that is coming now. And I did write Our Own Rhythm, which is another standalone in the same world. And I'm hoping I may novelize it for another anniversary. So that's something. And this one, you have the prequel novella that you can get in my newsletter, actually. And you have Mean that happens 5 years after. That's an interactive, but I'm actually writing the first book in this one.
Oh,
So it will be a book,
Excellent.
and hopefully
Good
running
to
a
know.
Kickstarter and writing a book at the same time are very challenging, as a piece of advice. Yeah. So I'm writing the first book, and hopefully, I can't promise anything, but I'm aiming to publish that at the end of the year. So that will have, that series, Records of the Orders, will have some books that are short books and some entries that are interactive, you know. So
And when you're not doing that, you're also doing your podcast.
yes,
do
I'm
you
doing the
find
podcast.
Yeah.
time? Sure.
How do I find time? It's like a puzzle pieces, like I have a few hours here, and that will work better for reading, or this will work better for writing the newsletter, and so on.
I'd highly recommend checking out Livia's podcast. There's a particularly good episode with Tim Napper and maybe me. That was a lot of fun to do. But it was interesting, and the thoroughness that I think you showed in your writing came across in the podcast, like the questions and the thought. It was a great sort of be part of that, and just to approach it in a very different way that other podcasts do. So I definitely highly recommend people checking that out.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, the one we did with Napper was very interesting. The thing is that that's how I read, So when I read a book, I start picking, I can turn the analytics off, the analytics side of me. So I will just start thinking of the themes, or I will think how the writer did something, because seeing, not only lyrical prose, but seeing tricks like the commas, or how do you use the sentence and the structure, and that gives me a lot of joy, basically. So I decided to do the podcast in that way. The problem is that to do those interviews, I need to read the books, and my TBR is very long, because if I'm reading the book to ask you questions about the themes, I'm generally taking notes, and I can get very slow, because sometimes I will read one paragraph, spend 2-3 minutes taking notes, read another paragraph, 2-3 minutes, and then I'm just like, what I was reading? Oh yeah, I have to reread everything. I'm confused from there, so it gets pretty slow.
I don't go to that level, but I do try to. I always try to. Hopefully, read something by, I guess, but it does pose some challenges sometimes. Where I look ahead and going, "Oh my goodness, we've been somewhere in 3 weeks, and I still haven't started." Then I just bluff and pretend, but
that's the other thing. I generally try to keep books for the podcast shorter. Like I try to go for books that are 300 pages or 400, but no more than that, especially because if I do a solo episode in terms of the themes, they can get very long. If a theme is very long, between the fact that I have to present a bit of the context of the book and everything, and then go into the theme, it can get into a 1 hour long episode. And I think that's one of the downsides of my podcast, is that it's long form, so not everybody will want to commit to a long form.
But no, it's good. But yes, there's a guest coming up that we haven't announced yet, whose book I'm about to start, which is a big book, and I'm going, right, okay, I'll set myself a goal here. So, but it's good. And it was a lot of fun. And I enjoyed it just for that, a real deep dive into Tim's book, which was The Escher Man, which that's on memory and what memory represents to yourself, and it was fascinating just sit back and hear you and Sarah talk to him and ask questions that I'd never thought of, or and really spend that immersive quality that's just in your story. So I think that comes across in that podcast as well. So if that's listening or afterwards, I'd highly recommend checking that out, because it's a different way of approaching, but it is very satisfying to get into that detail.
Yeah, I really like talking with the authors. Like I have that series, I do some solo episodes, I do some group discussions, but I also do the interviews with the authors. And I love doing them, because it's like I can see like everything they talked about. Sometimes it's in there in the pages, and I love sometimes when I discover like a little clue and then tell them, and they're just like, yeah, you realized,
You got it.
you found the clue. And also sometimes it's very impressive things we writers can do, because I have seen, for example, or interviewed people that they had a whole, the last one that I did with Bert Oliver Boomer, like he had a whole approach to naming the characters. So the structure of the names, in particular, the length of the name, the number of names and last names for a character, all of that was tied up into the ages of how old the family was, and a lot of things to just elicit the thing. Suppose that you see a character that has 4 names, you are going to think nobility, right? If you think or see a character, and he had this whole approach to thinking about that, and I loved finding out. I think that's what I like the most of the author interviews. That I can get the backstage and everything that happened behind the scenes. Yeah.
It's the green room chats as well when you got an author panel. Those are like the best. Where you think like, I wish we pressed record already.
Well, we've been guilty of that. Sometimes you start having a chat and go, "Hi, hang on a second, we should save this for."
we had P.L. Stewart on like a month ago. It's like deep and meaningful about podcasting and the book community. And this was like right before we went on, and we're like, what the hell do we talk about now? Like,
we're gonna have to come back to this. Maybe that's the Patreon tier. You can hear the pre-chat.
Definitely. I
but
think
like a series of character interviews. That's really good with authors. I don't think you've had time to do them for a while, though.
No. Charlie suggested I do one for myself, which was a brilliant idea, which I do intend to do.
Yeah, that's a bit of idea. We're going to dive into, but so I love those. So Livia sent some of the interviews with author, but it's the characters that are being interviewed, not the author.
Yeah.
So it's the character from the book answering the question, and that's quite fun as well. So it's a different approach. So
I will pick that up again.
It must be very hard because it must be very hard to do as well, trying to find the character and what the character will ask as well.
I think some people just really enjoy the process so much that it just flows, and some people not so much.
Yeah, definitely.
But I've yet to do my own character, so I think that'd be a good exercise anyway, just to be on the other side of it.
Turn the tables.
Yeah.
And live up. That's it. Liv, I was going to ask you were posting quite recently, you were scouring the Sydney bookshops and making me feel very inadequate because you were discovering ones that I hadn't seen in my own city, which is have you come across any more recently? Or have you been good?
I have been going through quite a few, actually. I like second-hand bookstores more than the regular, the new ones. And you know that in Sydney here, there are a few streets in which, I don't know, there are like one bookstore every other block. It's amazing. It's a problem for the wallet as well, but it's amazing. And some of them, like, what I like the most about second-hand bookstores is that sometimes you can get gems in older editions that you can get, or sometimes they will be dedicated, or they will be signed, and they are like very affordable. And just like, you have a signed copy there, but this super famous author, and you don't even know that. I like that. I love that. Yeah.
Yes,
we should go on the panel like on this one. Like, what's your best find from a second-hand bookshop?
I will say I have two. So I found Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which is a book for the Blade Runner movie. I wanted to get the cover that is the cover of the movie because it's hand painted. I think it's beautiful. And I actually found that one. And I found it when I was not looking for it because I spent months trying to change that edition. I couldn't get it. I couldn't get it. And then when I said like, perhaps one day, I just went to the bookstore and there it was, like, even at eye level on the shelf that was eye level, and I was just like, little treasure, I'm taking that. And then Carl Forshaw recommended Walking on Glass by Ian Banks, and I just loved it. But the problem is that I like to have books in all of the same edition, same size, same cover. And I wanted to read another one from that one that was on roughly from the same series, but I was sort of like, I want the same 1980s edition because it has too much the one that Carl gifted me. And I found it. So I went to a secondhand bookstore, and I was not looking for it because they actually put him in the literary fiction side, not on the science fiction. And because
they didn't pick up the M in the name. That's the
no,
truth.
it didn't have the name. It didn't have the M. But I was in general. I'm not sure why all the bookstores they just put him all together. Either even the sci-fi books, they will put him on literary, or they will put him on the other one.
Yeah, sometimes
and I found that.
Yeah, some do, some don't. You can tell if they don't, then they know what they're doing. Because
So this one this one I actually found it, and I was so happy. It was like all yellow, but it was the same cover, and I was just like, this is a win. Now I have matching editions.
Yeah, no, I love doing that as well. I think the place I got lost most doing that was years and years ago is in Hay on Wye, which is obviously Tom and Daryl know. I think it's in Wales or it's on the border of Wales. I'm not quite sure. It's close. It might actually be in Wales, and it's got. I might be wrong, but it's a small village that has more bookshops than anywhere in the. Like literally, there's 40 bookshops or something ridiculous in this village. And I went there and found this. Right, you've got like an hour and a half. I went, no, I need like all day. Like, you can just walk in and out, and there's secondhand ones, and there's ones that are devoted to certain genres, or what. And it's like, you'd have to spend a week there, Livia, I think.
Yeah, I still have a lot to see here because in Sydney there are like so many bookstores.
Yeah,
and there are so many independent bookstores. Actually, I love that.
Yeah, no, it's hard here because books are, you mentioned about the secondhand one, so it's great because they're typically very expensive in Australia. Like new books are very expensive. Partly, I don't know if it's transportation, parts of the tax on them and things like that. So it can be quite prohibitively expensive to get new ones. So but I think it's nice to give them a new life, go and find a treasure somewhere. So
the one that I regret not purchasing was that I found the 10 books tome for the Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny. And I actually found the actual tome that has 10 novellas in a single one, an omnibus edition. And there were some people in front of the shelf. The book was on the topmost shelf, and I couldn't reach for it. And my partner was like, I can pick it for you. And I was just all shy. No, I don't dare. And when I came back the next time, it was gone. And I regret it deeply. Yeah.
The one that got away. Yeah.
It got away. Yep.
You question who takes these books to charity bookstores in the first place. Like, why would you give that away? Like, I'm not complaining, but it's crazy.
Yes, or the one that's been signed and it ends up in anything.
Yeah,
not like it. Is it? Yeah, as you said, sometimes you go through and you find ones that signed, and you think it's almost like there's a story
in every book.
That, isn't there? And how did this book get to this place? And that's, as you said, that's sort of the story of the object, or how what its history was. I think.
Yeah,
you have to make up your own story.
One of the dedicated ones that I had that I got in a secondhand bookstore is a woman to the boyfriend, apparently, that's signing it. So I'm not sure. And another one is a mother that's saying like something, get well soon, something like that. It's gifted. Yeah. So I would really like to know what happened in there. I love those findings, the ones that are dedicated. Yeah.
You really hope they did get better soon and it didn't go the other way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, they didn't get better.
Like, he didn't get better soon.
That's
sorry. Took it down a dark turn there. I chose that.
This is meant to be the light-hearted topic of the panel.
Sorry. I showed my cards to there, sort of, you'll know which choice I make. So.
I got very excited once. There's a brilliant secondhand bookshop near me, and it's It's an Oxfam one. Charlie, you might know it. It's like top of Guildford High Street.
Oh yes, I think that's familiar. Yeah, sounds familiar. Yeah,
It's quite a small little dinky store. But anyway, I thought, because I was a bit stupid, that I'd found a first edition of Game of Thrones. So I bought it. I was like, I'm just having that. I'm not going to question it. And it was, but it also wasn't. Like it turns out they did like some reprint edition. There was like a British Fantasy Society and version I have, whilst it is like a replica of the first edition of Game of Thrones. It's not by much. Which makes me think maybe the person who dropped it off in the charity bookshop was in the exact same situation as I was. And it's now just a
that's the third time it's been through the bookshop. First edition.
I'm not sure if you have noticed, Charlie, in here, but there are some bookstores that have like a whole shelf of folio editions. Like,
yeah, I've seen some. There's some.
There is so many. Yeah,
I've got some on. I shall find them.
Like I remember one bookstore that I went, like they had this whole shelf. There were so many of them, like sometimes a whole box set of things.
They're not quite the same thing, but I've got some of these ones from the Terry Pratchett ones that are in this sort of they're in this sort of style, hardback sort of. So I've been collecting. When I see these, I'm sort of loving those ones. So, and there's some bookshops that literally have just. I don't know what these particular ones are, but they're
that they will have the special editions. Yeah.
So I like trying to pick those up if I see them.
Yeah.
But there's lots to discover. So which is good.
I think I want to I'm going to put this to all of you guys. We'll start with DB. Like, what's the one charity bookshop find that you're waiting for? The one you just keep going back to the charity bookshop for?
See, I'm going to sidestep because I'm throwing everything into audio at the minute because audio works and I've got time and I can listen in the gym and reading books. When after I've been working and writing, physical books are starting to wreck my eyes. So I'm going all audio and I feel terrible about it, but it's just the way forward.
Wreck your eyes. You might need to go and get some of these.
Yeah.
Well, I did actually go to the opticians about 3 days ago, and they've not got any worse, so that's good. But,
okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, mine's declining.
Not read an actual book, a physical book, for a long time. Shameful amount of time.
Yes, mine's dropped off the page there. I do need to go to get my prescription updated, so I'm very much been on the electric book, Kindle. Because I can make it bigger.
Yeah.
I resisted Kindle like for the longest time, but I read I think it was 40 ebooks on my phone last year. And my eyes were knackered.
Yeah.
So just had a birthday. I've got the latest Kindle, and it's night and day. It's so much better.
I did the same for a long time, and then I had a Kobo reader before, but then I kind of went. I was initially up to go, this terrible. I would never do, and then I was like, "You idiot! It's brilliant," And so now my physical books, I tend to go more the special ones, like ones I want to keep, and they say back to the question, the good find from the bookshop or signed ones. No one's getting my signed ones. They're coming with me when I go. So,
I have two actually.
Sorry, the best book I actually found in it was actually in a church book sale, was an early edition of Fever Dream by George R.R. Martin.
Ooh.
I didn't know existed, and I don't know if you know that book, but it's a beautiful deep South vampire book, sort of in the Mississippi steamboat sort of era.
Oh, nice to know.
I never heard of it.
Yeah, in fact, have I got it to show nearby?
Nope.
Yes.
He does.
Oh wow! I had never seen that one.
Yeah, neither had I. And Well, it's a long time ago since I read it, but it was really good. I don't know if that was his first book.
Yeah.
That's all good. But so Livia, you said, did you?
Oh yeah. So I have two that I have been trying to find. One is a non-fiction. It seems to be nowhere. Like nowhere. I can't find that one, and it's not on print anymore. So it's either I get that or I pay, or I don't. Yeah. So it's very difficult to get. But I think there are two that I would like if I ever find the Chronicles of Amber, like the 10 tomes. I will get it. I will get that one.
You push those people out of the way next time.
Yes, I will do it definitely. And probably if I ever find Electric Ship signed, that I will jump into it. Yeah. And it wouldn't matter the cover. I will just try to get that one. Yeah.
Do you say that?
Let me think.
Well, not the 80s edition cover.
Yeah. Well, I think I did find one that there was, well, that day, probably a couple months ago, there's an older copy of The Stand by Stephen King, which is one of my all-time favorite books. But what I really want to find is there's an uncut edition, so it's like an extra 300 pages or something on it. So I really want to. Now, if it could be signed, that would be again. But the chance of me finding a signed Stephen King book in the secondhand bookshop is probably pretty remote. But the uncut or the unabridged or whatever they want to call it version of The Stand, which is a favorite story.
Because we all know, like, all Stephen King books need another 300 pages.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I have read it, and I did have a copy I had a copy years ago before we moved from the UK, and I left a lot of books behind, and my mother got rid of them, sort of thing, at some point. So I wish So that's recapturing what I had. So and of course a signed copy, of course. I'll look for as well at some point.
Yeah. I did the same. When I came to Australia, I only brought in like a few books. And that's it. Yeah. That's the saddest part of relocating, having to leave the books behind.
Yes, that's it.
It's just got really sad. I don't like leaving books behind.
Well, we just have to go find new ones. So that's the...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And start hoarding all over again.
Absolutely. Well, that's it. I mean, that's why I keep Daryl's envious bookshelf, like the one I've got behind me. I think I got one January. I think by February I'd filled it.
Yeah, like we were also talking on Twitter, Charlie, and when you said, like, I bet your house is just one immaculate bookshelf full of sci-fi fantasy books and the rest is just boxes. That was so, like, nailed on correct.
Yeah. First thing you did.
Bookshelves. But I can't actually reach them at the moment. They're very embarrassing.
Yeah. Cutlery? No. It's like, but I've got the books up.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Oh, funny. That's a happier note.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to. Livia, maybe we'll cross paths in a bookshop soon. Then we'll do a live.
Yeah. If you see a crazy lady in there picking up all the books, that's me.
Yeah. I'll get out of the way.
All mine. Yep.
You're just haphazardly signing copies of our own books and throwing them in the charity shop as well.
Yeah. And you know that there are people that in the second-hand bookstores, they will try to get the books that look like more newer, things like that. I generally like when they are yellow or when they are stained or things like that. It's like Charlie was saying before, it's like the book has a history, you know.
Yeah.
And it may not be Instagrammable, but I don't care. I like the history or whatever the thing went through. So yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you find one that's got like the old style pricing. You see like what books used to cost.
Yeah.
And
sometimes it's that's the thing. I think I got the one from Ian Banks that I got. I think it's 200 pages or something like that, and it's far thicker than the others that I have. And yeah, if you look at it, it will seem like a 350 pages, but it's just like 200 simply because of a paper. Yeah.
Yeah. Just paper type. Yeah, back when paper wasn't at a premium, I expect. So
yeah.
Different quality or different weight is the word I'm looking for. Yeah.
I want to know where this village is with like 40 bookstores.
Hey, on why?
Okay.
I need to go there.
Yeah, they have a big, like, a literary festival, which is quite well known. Yeah, I'll search. Let's see.
I think one of the coolest secondhand bookstores I went to was in Venice, and it's like wall to ceiling books. They've even got like this old rowing boat in the middle of the shop, and even that is full of books as well. It's just the most incredible place.
So I think it's around 30 bookshops. So I maybe exaggerated, but it's not a big place at all.
Oh.
So yeah,
Tell them just got swallowed by all the others.
Yeah. So yeah, that's worth checking out.
I need to visit that place.
Yeah, it is in Wales. So there we go. Put it on your to go to list. Yeah.
Yeah. And in here, there are a lot of bookstores or secondhand bookstores that are actually coffee shops. Like
yes,
you can
I think one of the ones I recommend to you in a place called Glebe, that Sapporo Books, I think it's called, has like, and it's quite a ramshackle sort of building, and there's different levels to it. But then at the bottom, they've got a courtyard with a cafe and that's.
Yeah, but there are so many of that style in here. Like you will get the cafe, and then you will get all the books there. Right?
Yeah,
it's so pretty.
If you ever go up to the Blue Mountains, there's a very good one up in up in the Blue Mountains. There's a couple of good ones up in the Blue Mountains, which I discovered by accident when I was up there.
I was told like there is a whole trail. Like you can start and go further west until you reach the Blue Mountains, and there are bookstores, so you can do all the stops.
Yeah, up in the Blue Mountains, we get some good ones up there, and then you've got all the bush and the walks and the stuff. So that's put that on you.
Yeah. I still need to go there. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said to Daryl, but watch out for the snakes. But that's it's all right in winter. That they're not. They're sleeping, so it's all good.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me feel any better about going there.
No, it's generally because they're cold-blooded. So in winter they're slow and sluggish. It's summertime when they wake up and a bit feisty. So yeah.
So since we are talking about secondhand books, I have a question for you. Did you ever pick one of the ones that are wrapped? They only have like the date with a book. They only have like some notes on the outside on the wrap, and that's it. That you are picking the book blind.
Oh, like a mystery.
Yeah, so they will sell the book that is completely wrapped up in brown paper, and it just has like a few notes on the outside of what it is, and then you don't get like the name, the author, nothing, just those summary points, and you have to pick it blind. Yeah, have you ever picked one of those?
No, I haven't. No, that sounds intriguing.
No.
They do that near me. I've never been brave enough though.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm too fussy. It's so unlikely that it'll be a book I like.
Yeah.
But it's
especially
intriguing.
because it's intriguing. I have been like
flip that on his head, and I'll ask you guys this question: if you're doing that to your book, what would the notes be?
Oh, interesting.
You can pick a book. I mean, obviously, for those that have more than one. And they're in the podcast.
I want to hear. Yeah. So for dance, I will probably put up something like clean fairy tale, heartbreaking, found family. Yeah. We don't know. It's those are like, and something about like lyrical or literary as well for strike through to try to put that up. Yeah. But I'm really intrigued about like, Brooke, what will you put up for Callus and Crow? Like, how can you summarize?
Well, it's always difficult to summarize. The best thing that somebody else summarized it was what was it now? It was Western vampires in a post-apocalyptic theme park.
Yeah. See, I would buy it for that alone. There's a subscript. There's a subscript. You will not forgive the author for the ending.
Yes. I was actually upset about the ending, and I think I texted
Thank you.
Rook
That was
on Twitter, and I was just like, "How could you?"
I said the same thing to you when I was reading it. I said, "You bastard!"
So unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary.
Yeah, it was very effective. I love it. But it was like, oh, bad man.
That's what I'm after. Crushing your dreams.
Yeah, Livia, you were talking earlier about how people interpret your book, and DB just does that with his.
Yeah,
man doesn't give a shit.
Okay, Tom, come on, give us your summary.
Yeah, my brown paper bag blurb. If Jim Hawkins wasn't a wuss and joined the pirates.
Nice.
I think there you go. That's got how you do your blurbs from now on. You got to pretend it's a brown paper bag. You've got no cover. You got no.
Yeah.
Oh, I have one. I have a funny one. This one. I will say 20,000 years old alchemists confuse humans with lab rats.
I think we hit it.
It's a big dream. It's a dream story, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we hit on the marketing genius, guys. This could be the what's your brown paper bag quote? Yeah. Which you might have to explain to people because they might take that the wrong way.
I like that. We should ask every author on the show, what's your brown paper bag? And not even explain it.
No, I think Livia, thank you. You've just given us a hook for future episodes.
Yeah.
Now you have a game, yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, you could make a game, couldn't you? Just submit the notes and then guess
the book.
Whose book is?
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Or do it like classic titles. Okay.
Yeah.
Guy with hairy feet takes his jewelry to be appraised in a volcano.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Man with large fish obsession.
I'm just waiting for you to finish it, but no.
That's it.
Yeah.
Not going to give that one away. So there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll I think that'd be a good question going forward, and we'll put that one out there. So thank you.
And then you have to make a ranking of best responses that you get.
Yes. Top ladder. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Janice is topping the table. Admittedly, you're the first author we've asked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's our first one.
Yeah, that's funny. That actually came up because they were doing on Twitter a pitch your book badly tweet.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was trying to get an idea of what I could do, and I got that idea. Yeah.
That's good. No, I like it.
Yeah, I need to start doing these pitch events and things, but there's so many of them. I almost don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Start here.
We're starting the podcast.
There you go.
Awesome.
Have a pitch off, like dance battle, but
yeah.
The brown paper battle.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, look, we better wrap it up because it's getting late in the morning for you guys, but very late in the evening for me and DB. I'm sorry, roving reporter couldn't make it today.
I think he's been over. I think he's overcome with fanboy. His last comment was about an hour. It was nearly an hour ago. So I think he's maybe overcome with excitement.
Yeah.
But hey, seriously, thank you, Livia, for joining us. Where can people watching find your work and yourself online?
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, thank you for having me, even if when I went beardless. That was very nice.
In a beard that counts. That's what we say. It's your spiritual beard.
Yeah.
Spiritual beard, yeah. And well, you can find me almost everywhere as Livia J Elliot. I'm on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, Instagram as Livia J Elliot. My podcast is Books and Done, and you can find it everywhere where podcasts are, including Audible as well. And my newsletter is liviajelliot.substack.com. And if you subscribe, you will get the free book for this one. So that's a good thing. So you can get the book there. Yeah.
And it's a very good newsletter, I might add. It's a newsletter that I actually think, I really want to read this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that newsletter
was.
Yeah. Sorry?
An actual readable newsletter. Those are rare.
Yeah. So I generally do a small bite-sized prose analysis. So I will pick like a paragraph, or I do different things. Like, for example, I'm doing a series on word building, like the different things that you can do, very practical, like, for example, around naming or presenting information to just improve the word building. So it's more like, literary analysis, prose analysis, bite-sized themes. So generally, I keep most of the theme or the thematic analysis to my podcast, and the newsletter is just the literary and the prose analysis. So it does have very, very little self-promotion, actually. So yeah, if you want to subscribe, it's on liviajelliot.substack.com. You will get it there. You will get the book as well. Then for the app, Unearth the Stories, you can find it it's free to install on Android, on iOS or iPad, and you can find it on the App Store or Google Play as Unearth the Stories. And most of the stories are also free to read, actually. We only have 3 that are actually paid stories. The rest of them are free, and you can just read them all the times that you want. Yeah. And for the Kickstarter for Dance With Me, let me show it here again because I love it. It's so pretty. So for Dance With Me, you can find it on Kickstarter. Just search for Dance With Me, Livia J Elliot, and I think that Charlie put up the link on the description as well.
When does that end?
It's ending on June 6th. So you still have some time. However, after that, we are having 1 or 2 weeks of late pledges, but the late pledges will only be 2. So the hardback and the audiobook, and they will be a bit more expensive. So my recommendation is try to get it now, which are, the hardback is actually just $28 USD. So it should be quite an affordable thing. And I know that we are in Australia, but we did some things with shipping and it's not that expensive. So hopefully.
It's for hardback, it's not a silly price, which is nice. So
and we are currently going for a stretch goal number 5, which will be the short story insert. So it will come with an insert that is a letter between one character and the other, and the following stretch goal is a response to that letter. So hopefully we can get there.
Push forward.
Awesome.
And thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed that.
Thanks for coming.
You're welcome. It's been great fun chatting to you, and all the best with the Kickstarter. Everyone watching, whether that's live or tomorrow, whenever, please back it. It looks awesome, and we want more stretch goals.
Reach for the stars.
So, thanks, guys. Have a good night, everyone, and good morning, and enjoy the weekend.
Good day. Yeah, absolutely. See you, man.
Yeah, we're back next week after next.
The Four Beardsmen.